Okay, thank you for joining us for the Superman 2 panel with Sarah Douglas. I'm Joshua Lou Friedman. I'll be your moderator for this particular panel. We're going to go ahead and run a quick clip intro for you, and we'll bring it on down. Let's go ahead and run that, sir. Oh, we have a technical difficulty already. I love it.
Looking good, though.
So she looks great, though, doesn't she?
Is this the second audio channel? Is that what it is? Yeah. That one fine?
Josh, being continued.
Okay. No, but it's a family-friendly event, so I'm not allowed to tell those kind of jokes. Yeah, go ahead and start over. You're ready. Get my clip. If it's all fixed, let's start again. What do you want? We're going to give you an example of what you can do on the screens here. So yeah, it's not upset the panel. Oh, you're ready to all right, give it a shot. We got it. Find out. No, you're in the right channel. But we can just all right, we'll go ahead and yeah, we'll have her fill in the dialogue for us live. Yeah, we can just skip the intro and go right into it. We're going to go ahead and skip the intro, unfortunately, and it was a lovely intro, but, well, we won't be seeing those days again. All right, well, let's go ahead and bring out our lovely actress, Sarah Douglas. Let me try.
Very disappointed.
Oh, that makes two of us.
Hi, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Can I sit down?
Yeah, please, sit
Can you
down right
see me
there.
if I sit down?
Did everyone see Sarah okay right there?
Yes, good.
Awesome.
Do we have a little light down here?
Yeah, I'm only going to be turning them off and on between the clips. Hopefully the other clips will work.
Oh, I see. You mean there's more?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
Will those work, do you think, the other ones? Or?
I don't know.
We'll find out when we play the first clip.
Did you try them first?
Yeah.
And they worked?
They worked my turning on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's this panel. They put those couple of these slight problems. But anyway,
Never mind.
well, moving on. Sarah, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. I was interested to see what you'd got up there.
Yeah, well, I've seen it, but again, the sound thing. Sorry.
That's okay. It was. I know you started with Babylon 5, which I recall was one of those makeups that I sent a Polaroid home to my mother in England, who sent a message back by my sister saying she was a little worried that I was obviously drinking too much. So I had to. She's quite elderly. I had to point out there were some serious prosthetics.
Very serious prosthetics.
Very serious.
I've had hangovers that bad. I understand how that works. And then there was actually a Conan clip in there too. Before we jump into Superman 2, talk a little bit about your experiences on Conan at all. Did you?
Well, first of all, Arnold in those days was engaged to Maria.
Yeah.
He wasn't yet married, so we would have a week of fun and games because he's quite a wild beast, as everybody says. And then come the weekend, Maria would turn up, and he would be very polite and gentlemanly. And of course, I made a lifelong friendship with Grace Jones, and who was in Conan, obviously, with me.
And you were a fan of Grace's before Conan,
of
right?
course,
Yeah.
of course. We're talking about 83,
I believe, yeah.
And we have remained very, very close. In fact, I just spoke to her last weekend, and we had the best time in Mexico. Universal didn't know what had hit them because we were there, and we just we just had a very good time.
Yeah, in my research, it was, were offered the role, and you weren't keen on doing it at first, and I found, once you found that Grace Jones had signed on, well, that was the tipping point for you.
Well, at the time of Conan, I think, yes, that had a lot to do with it, but also I was in the middle of shooting Falcon Crest. So it necessitated me going down every 3 days and doing a couple of days, 2 or 3 days in Mexico, and then flying back to Hollywood. So and that's what I ended up doing. So I was going back and forth. So at the time I was not sure that it was something I wanted to get. But then when I saw the clothes and the outfits and Grace and Arnold and Mexico.
Awesome. All right, well, let's move on to the film we're here about. What's it called again? Superman 2. But first, Superman 1, of course, their characters were introduced in. Let's talk a little bit about how you got the role in the auditioning process for Donna's original film.
Well, I'm sure everybody's probably heard the stories over and over again.
Let's give it to them again.
Okay, well, I'm sorry about this. At the time of, whilst they were casting, did I do that?
Sorry. You may have found our difficult.
Oh, have you found
really?
a difficulty?
If it works, I'd love to run the clip show for Sarah to see.
Just to remind me.
To remind you, exactly.
Are you going to test this? Shall I just go on talking to
Oh, we're gonna they're gonna run it. Am I lying? All right, let's go ahead. They're giving you previews of other panels that we've got going on later. All right, let's. I'm gonna kill lights. Let's take a look. Here we go.
I'm going to be so disappointed if it doesn't.
All right, that makes 2 of us. Yeah, I'm gonna be here like, thanks, guys. Blow it up and let's see what we got.
I will need your name and address. Okay.
Great.
Failing upwardly.
So failing upward. All right, so back to
So moving right along.
yeah, back to the auditioning process for Superman.
So I was shooting People That Time Forgot, and I was in the Canary Islands and knew nothing about Superman, nothing whatsoever. But whilst I was away filming, I had heard that they were looking for this, this character, Ursa. Knew nothing about her. Came back from the Canaries to find that they'd seen something ridiculous like 600, or they were seeing every female actress in the whole wide world was seen for Superman. I was busy working, and it was at a time in England where the film industry was very, very, very poor, and the only film that was being shot was People That Time Forgot. So I was slightly full of my own self-importance, I hasten to add. We were filming at Pinewood Studios, and they were casting out of Shepperton Studios. And so there were 8 separate occasions. We made an appointment for me to go over at the end of my filming day, which consequently is why I never did a screen test, because they weren't willing to spend the money in the evening to test me, because they'd have to have held the crew on, and I was busy doing the other film. So anyway, 8 times I made an appointment, and 8 times I was all primed and ready to go and meet this director from California, which came with a certain sort of, Californian director in those days. It seemed incredibly glamorous. Anyhow, 8 times they cancelled me. 8 times just before I left, or 8 times just before I got in the car, they said, well, something had happened and it was cancelled. So on the 8th occasion, I said, that's it, I'm not going, I don't need this, I don't know who these people are, they come over here from America, who do they think they are? Don't need to go. And the casting lady, who was a very, very, very famous casting lady in England, who's since sadly died, Mary Selway, said to me, you really, really should try. This role is absolutely up your street. So I gave it one more shot. And I went over to the studio, and I got there at about 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'd been up since, 4:30 a.m. And I was possibly cranky, possibly, but I was not in good humour. It was a long day. And I got there, and Richard Donner kept me waiting for 40 minutes.
Good.
And not good. And so I didn't even know about the character. But of course, he kept me waiting, and I went into this room finally, and here was this guy, and I can see him now in his blue tinted shades, which I thought were ridiculous at that time of night. But there he sat, and I kind of let him have it. I kind of told him in my own inimitable fashion, who do you think you are? I'm a busy working actress, and sort of gave him the old attitude, and it turned out that that was exactly what he was looking for. It was the beginning of the attitude that got me the part. I then was called back for, as I said, I couldn't do the screen test, so they put me in a very small room with Donna and the producers and everything, and I, fortunately for me, was working with the stuntmen that were going on to Superman. They were working with me on People That Time Forgot, so they told me what was expected of me. Again, I wouldn't have known otherwise, so I was practicing my high kicks and my movements, if you like, and I got myself into this very small space with filing cabinets and ended up with Dick Donna sort of literally on top of the filing cabinet while I sort of went rushing around the room, high kicking and, you know, terrified the life out of the poor lot. So that was the second stage. And then finally, this went on for weeks, finally, and this is a story I'm sure you've all heard, I was asked in to do excuse me, a flying test, because it transpired that a lot of actresses didn't like being up, you know, high in the sky or on wires, and I've always enjoyed, you know, all of that. And, you know, I always used to love to climb a tree and, you know, hanging from poles or wires or whatever. It was right up my street. So I arrived at the studio and and People at Time Forgot, I had very long hair, which I continued to have. In Superman, of course, I wore a wig, but I had very long hair, and I was wearing a black leotard. It looked terribly smart, and I tied my hair back. I mean, I couldn't have looked more conservative than sort of Englishy. And I had little plimsolls on, little sneakers, I can remember. I was ready to fly, and they showed me. They said, "You've got to go up that tall ladder," and this was on the Bond set, which was at the time the largest in the world. And they said, "You've got to jump off that windowsill, and then you're going to fly, you know, just fly." And I thought, okay, like you, jolly good. And so I went up, and prior to me, there'd been two other actresses. It seemed we were down to three. The actress before me was an Italian actress, and it appeared that she came in her full-length fur coat. So she'd been very glamorous. I arrived being, you know, in the leotard, and I jumped and I went into the kipper position, which I had learned from the stuntmen, so I got the right position and I flew across. And as I did, one of the crew shouted up to me, "Here, darling, you've got no chance. The last bird flew without any knickers on." And the girl before, seriously, the actress before had flown without any underwear on, across the heads of the directors and producers, whoa, like that. And I had to follow that. But I did, fully dressed, fully clothed.
And you still got the part.
And I still got the part.
I'm sure they see it. Very nice. Very nice. So I somehow feel that Dick Donner's people saved that previous screen test for their personal collections. Okay, so moving right along, you got the part, and here we are, we're in Superman 1, and you're doing your scene with Marlon Brando. I have on good authority that, I think this is actually common knowledge, Mr. Brando wasn't really keen on learning his lines. And he had actually, even when he's giving the speech to the young baby in the spaceship, he's actually giving the speech to his script. Have you seen any of that on facility?
Yeah, I'm a major Brando fan, and there is no question about the fact that, I mean, no, he never learned his lines. He still turned in a stunning performance. I don't know if I've made the story up now, because I've told it so many times about having the words stuck to my forehead, but I'm pretty certain
you wore some of his dialogue?
The dialogue, because he would read it, you know, he would read it off there, and I think it was probably here, and I think I've exaggerated wildly, but the dialogue was definitely written.
Sure.
He also travelled with a young lady whose job was the idiot cards. She would, you know, do his dialogue, and the idiot cards were back, you know, hanging up in the way in the distance. And I can remember as a young, you know, keen film actress wanting to know all the tips of the trade and talking to Brando about his intensity and, you know, the way he got into his part. And he said, no, he said, it's not intensity. He said, I can't read without my eyeglasses on. He said, I'm screwing up my eyes to read the idiot cards. So all of that, he's actually going, oh, like that. He's actually screwing up his eyes because he can't read. And he told me that, he said, to prove the point, he said, you can see in Missouri Breaks, I believe, you can see the words, you can see the words written on the fence behind him at one brief moment.
Sure.
And he also shared with me something which I hope no young people here, not that they probably wouldn't understand it, but he also shared with me that he said, if you think it's bad, I was talking about having the words stuck to me, he said, if you think that's bad, he said, in Last Tango in Paris, as he was passionately kissing Marie Schneider's, we've got to get that right, not Marie Schreiber, that would be terrible. Marie Schneider's body, and as he went down her body, kissing it on one side, he had all the words written on the other side of the body. So in fact, he was reading the words that were written on her body on the other side.
That's true.
Yeah. He was a great guy, he was fabulous.
Also in Superman 1, he uses Rolex on in one shot. The wardrobe didn't catch it, so if you look closely when they're putting the baby into the ship, look closely, you can pause it, you can see the Rolex. I'm sure that was a very popular brand of Krypton at the time. All right, so that was the first film, and so you knew you were coming back because originally they were going to shoot 1 and 2 back to back.
I hate to stop you right there.
Really, no?
It didn't work like that. We shot them all together all at the same time.
Okay.
So there wasn't a 1 and 2. There was...
Oh, that's what I meant. They were supposed to be all shot together.
They were all shot together.
Yeah, they were. But then Lester came in later
You're
on.
jumping way ahead.
Way too ahead?
Way too ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No, we had about 9 months, 8 to 9 months of shooting
Superman 2.
Superman 1 and 2.
I went into what do you mean back to back, of course.
But what I mean is that you had, if you were in if you're on the Fortress of Solitude, you did all the scenes from Fortress of Solitude, sure. Whether it was from 1 or from 2. Mm-hmm. What they realized was that they had actually shot an awful lot of Superman 2, and we hadn't got on with Superman 1, and it was getting, months were passing, so we were put. I loved it. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I went on something called Pay or Play. We stopped working. I was then contracted to come back the following summer to continue with Superman 2, and in fact they weren't ready the following summer. I can't remember the period. The period, it was over, almost over 3 years. But by the time I returned to complete filming Superman 2, of which we had shot an awful lot, by the time we got back there, Donna had gone. And Richard Lester had stepped in. But of course, anything with Brando, for instance, they weren't going to reshoot because they didn't have Brando. Anything with Hackman was done with a stunt double. So in those days, nobody talked about it. I mean, nobody actually mentioned the word that Donna had shot too. The cast were very, very upset about it. To be absolutely honest, it wasn't quite the same for me, We shot in London. I didn't sort of hang out with the guys in the evening. I went home to my husband, I went home every night and didn't sort of, we did the odd things, but those guys were all on location together. So they really bonded. And Richard Donner, like I said, it was the 70s. And everybody enjoyed and had a good time.
Of course.
Yeah, okay, we know what we're saying. So a lot of the actors enjoyed having a good time too. So there was a lot of good time had by all every evening. And there was a lot of bonding that went on. And consequently, when they fired Donna, the cast were, really up in arms. I wasn't quite the same. I didn't really get it. I didn't really have that sort of connection. And I've said before, Donna is brilliant, very laid back, very much, the sort of guy you want to hang out with, very easy. Richard Lester, who after all has shot some great comedy stuff and you would think would be a very easygoing guy, is very, what's the word? He was quite serious. He certainly, I wouldn't say had a terrific sense of humour that I saw, and was very, very technical. But for me, it worked brilliantly. Because if some guy says to me, as Donna would say to me, you know what, Sarah, I don't know if you're going to get this. For instance, an example being the scene where I walk onto the set and they say to me, okay, you've got to walk up to that plank of wood, you've got to step on the plank of wood, you're going to flip up the manhole cover, you're going to catch it and throw it like a frisbee and hit Superman. Now, this was at 4 a.m. in the morning. And it was bloody cold because they built the backlot, they built Metropolis on which they didn't know at the time was an underground lake. So it was freezing, the ground was freezing. And as you know, I don't wear many clothes in Superman, it was freezing.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, no, they managed to get me, again, common knowledge, I had a fur-lined bra. Because that was the only thing, a mink line, because the costume was see-through, there was no way I could wear anything warm underneath. Except for the top. So
that's
that's hot. It was hot. They were hot. Hottest pair in the business. Moving right on. But anyway, so Donna said to me, this is what you do. Boom, boom, boom. And I came onto the set, and I can remember vaguely thinking, God, okay, but this is what you do. And I went and I did it. You know, bang, 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 I did it. Lester said that. If it had been Donna, I think there's a very good chance he'd have said to me, you know what, Sarah, you know, if you don't get it today, we can try again tomorrow. It's possibly a little bit difficult. We might need to practice. I think I might not have had so much success with the scene as I did. So I worked very well with Lester. Yeah. You know, any excuse for me to mess around. And Donna was way too easy to mess around with, you know. But with Lester, it was serious business.
No messing around,
you know,
sure, yeah.
No messy aroundy.
Time is money on set, so you really got to
sure.
You know, get it and get it.
But you've also got to remember that time is money. It was the first flying shot. I want to say that you've got to remember it's 30 years ago. I want to say it was about 90 days before they accepted the first flying shot. One of the things that they did, I mean, it's mind-boggling nowadays. We had the like tracks, obviously, three railway tracks up in the sky with the wires on that we hung on. But nobody had actually figured out that when you go around a corner, the momentum makes you swing. So the first time the three of us fly, and we went round the corner like a bend, we all got caught up, and there we hung. You know, I mean, little things like that. I mean, Christopher Reeve on the very first day, Superman doesn't sweat. You know, Christopher Reeve does, or did. I mean, he lifted up his arms, and there was perspiration, and that was quite a long while before they worked out how to do something like that.
Yeah, that's evident on the screen test. You'll see if you watch on the DVDs for Superman.
Oh, really?
The screen test. He's got Lake Michigan under there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. I mean, those sort of little things. I mean, I had a problem with my false nails that would, because of the heat of the lights, and I was so high up, that in the middle of a shot, my nails would melt, which they'd stop. Yeah, and they would just suddenly, in the middle of it, you'd see this little thing sort of falling down, and it was a false nail. They ended up baking them on. I had my fingers baked. They put them in an oven and they baked on acrylic nails, which then stayed on my fingers for something like 8 months. And then they went, and then I didn't have any fingernails. But then I did a film called Solar Babies, and I didn't have any fingernails, so it's been fun.
You mentioned the first time being up in the wire work and the first time you guys tried to fly. Which sequence was it? Because as you and I know that we don't shoot in order. Which flying sequence was the first one?
Wait a minute. When did I shoot this? 1971.
You don't remember which time you first were up in the wires?
I have a feeling that it's when we jumped out of the window, the three of us, we all went out of the window of the Daily Planet. Isn't that where three of us jump out of the window? Yeah, I think that might have been it.
Okay.
I think. But I mean, it was day after day, after endless day, an endless day of not doing any work. You know, it was it was like 17 months altogether. 9 months and 8 months for me. It was a long process.
Well, moving right along. So the scenes with Gene Hackman, he's an incredible actor. Were those, let's talk about working with Gene a little bit.
Well, he's just the best. Gene Hackman is just a regular guy, and I can only really describe it as, I said I love Brando, and indeed, I still love Brando, but Brando had an aura about him. Brando was a superstar. There is no question about the fact that people were totally in awe of him. Shepperton Studios, they worked out which way he was going to walk when he walked to his dressing room, and they carpeted that particular corridor, and they painted that particular wall, so that when he walked, you know, everywhere he went was superb. Everywhere else was like, you know, crumbling down. Everything was done. We were all in awe of Brando, and he was the sweetest guy. And you know, when you come up, well, you know, I don't say you know, but when you come up to your seat at the end of a scene, you would come up to your chair, and you're looking for your chair with your name on, and inevitably somebody's sitting in it, which is fine. And you see, as you're walking off the set, you see everybody jump up and look to see if they're in your chair, and then if they are, they discreetly sort of slip off. And I witnessed Brando walking towards where the cast was sitting, and I witnessed him noticing some guy sitting in his chair, and the guy hadn't noticed Brando coming. So Brando went off in the corner and did an upturned bucket and sort of sat in that very quietly. He was really, he sat me on his lap. which again was a problem because it was either would I sit on top of his fat, which I remember would mean up here, or did I sit on his knee? And it was, I mean, he was a big guy, and I was rigid with fear. And surprisingly enough, I've sat on a few men's laps in my life, and I can remember being absolutely terrified. And you know, he said to me, he said, you know, just relax a bit. It was very difficult around him. You were aware that you were in the presence of somebody, although he was wonderful and lovely and wicked sense of humour and did everything to send us up, and certainly in the Fortress of Solitude, he was making faces at us like it was going out of fashion. He's very, you know, he was good fun. But Hackman is just a regular guy. You know, he's a movie star, there's no question about it, but he's a regular guy. And so we hung out with him a lot, and you know, he was easy to be around him, and it should have been easy to be around Brando. And it wasn't Brando's fault. It was just, and he really did, he was extraordinary.
This first attack on the moon base in Superman, okay, sorry, moon base, sorry. On the moon. Yeah. On the moon. Talk about that. How much fun was that, you know, being able to fly around and control that astronaut?
Well, one of the things about the that whole sequence, which I think you probably do know, but in Japan, that was the only sequence that was cut, because the Japanese didn't like the idea of a girl kicking a guy in the old house your father's. Yeah. This was not a nice thing to do. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Yes, I watched that again the other day. It really works very well, doesn't it? It's an extraordinary scene. That Jeffrey Unsworth was the lighting cameraman. He was a spectacular guy. And one of the problems that we had, of course, we shot most of that with, I can't remember whether we shot all of it with Donna, but we certainly did most of it with Donna and Jeffrey Unsworth. And one of the other things that happened in the break that I told you about was that Jeffrey Unsworth died. And so not only did we have a different director, we had a different lighting cameraman, and they had quite a bit of trouble matching that.
Yeah. And in that scene, you claim your first badge off of a character, for the character's personal collection, which he amasses throughout the story. That was written into the script, or was that something that kind of developed on set?
No, it was written into the script.
Okay.
Yeah, it was well written into the script. I mean, there was a lot of sort of Mickey Mouse stuff.
Yeah, but that gave her a little extra character. I mean,
yeah.
She had her little fetish, if you will, to collect these things.
If you will.
If you will.
Yeah.
If you will.
Yeah, no. It turned out to be a very popular little fetish.
It is, yeah.
People like that. Yes, I mean, the whole astronaut thing, I just think that the astronaut really does look as if he was walking on the moon and he's filled with air, and I just love that, I mean, the way he just shoots off into outer space. Yeah. I mean, I buy it all. I know nowadays everything is brilliantly done, but I'm sorry.
It still holds up.
Yeah.
It still holds up, right? Yeah, sure does. And we're going to go ahead and let's turn it over to the audience now. Do we have any questions?
Can I just ask, sure. Is that gone? Is it not?
I mean, tell me.
This is my official answer.
Yeah.
What's the official answer?
We were set up for DVD for all their panels.
Oh,
so
and this
makes the stereo mono down.
Gotcha.
Okay, don't worry.
Don't worry, we'll show you some clips later.
No, I've seen it before.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions for the audience. Does anyone have any questions for the lovely Miss Douglas here? What? No questions about Superman. There's one.
Very
right
good.
there. Go for it.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the new movie that you mentioned in the program, the werewolves and
Strippers versus werewolves. Yes. Okay. Well,
what's the movie about?
Suffice to say, I play an ex-stripper, and I'm not playing a werewolf. And if one more person says, "Which one are you playing?" It was fun to do. I am choosing my words very carefully here because I have a very personal connection with the film, and I personally enjoyed the director very much, Jonathan Glendering, and he got fired at the very end of the film, which makes me not very happy, she said tactfully. And consequently, my understanding is, and I'm saying my understanding is, that he didn't get a chance to edit the film. So I don't know what the final product is like.
It's a dangerous game. When
It's
the
a
studio-
dangerous, yeah.
The studio takes a film away from a director to edit. You never know what
Exactly.
it is.
So I am interested to see. I'm going to reserve judgment. I'm not thrilled about it. I'm not thrilled about the circumstances around it. And you know, I've been in the States since '82, and this was the first film that I had shot in England since '82. And so that was last summer, and an English production. And so consequently, I just feel a little tainted. You know, we're very protected in the States, you know, with our unions and our things and stuff. I mean, stuff happens, but it doesn't usually happen unless it's a very good reason. And so I'm not, I can't say a lot about it because I haven't seen it yet. I'm reserving judgment. It can't be his vision. And so when you meet a director and you talk to a director about what he sees, and it's very much tongue-in-cheek. I mean, it has to be tongue-in-cheek. I mean, Robert Englund, it's fantastic, but he does a day's work. You know, they're selling the movie on Robert Englund being in it, and I'm thrilled, but it was a day's work. So we'll just, you know, let us all see it, and then I'm sure I'll have lots to tell you next time round.
I don't doubt it. Any more questions at all? There you are. Go for it.
I'm a huge fan of the original miniseries. I loved your character and your performance. Can you tell us any good stories or what it was like being there?
Well, again, V was in the miniseries, and at the time, I was also doing Falcon Crest. And I was on episodic, which means that every week on Falcon Crest, they would say to me, would you like to come back next week? I mean, you kind of knew that you were going to come back because the storyline was there, but that way they don't pay you much, basically. And I was thrilled to be in it anyway. Consequently, when V, I was asked to be in the series of V, I was also offered a contract by CBS for Falcon Crest. And my agent at the time was very keen that I should be in a nighttime soap with big hair and big earrings and big shoulders because it was the early 80s rather than V. I listened to him. I don't think it was a bad idea because as far as primetime television went, yes, Friday night, 9 o'clock every night for Falcon Crest. But I was one of 24 women, you know, and if I had known that my career would go off in a particular direction, which sort of has gone along the sci-fi fantasy path, I wish that I had continued with V. I wish now. And even though it didn't have an enormous following, it certainly has an incredibly strong fan base. And I got to work with Mark Singer, who I then worked with again, and in Beastmaster, which is another great classic. I remember Wings Hauser and I would call it Yeast Master, the itch that wouldn't go away. And Mark is very serious and did not appreciate that. This was no, Beastmaster is a serious piece of artwork. But V was great. I mean, I'm of the group that, you know, I really loved the original. I've met lots of people that didn't enjoy the new series. I wasn't a great fan of it because that's not my kind of stuff anyway. I'm a sort of Downton Abbey kind of sad sack. But I watched some of it, and I couldn't see. I thought it looked pretty damn good to me. This V round. What did you think?
I didn't see much of the
Yeah, you see, the old faithful V people.
Purist.
Yeah, but it was good. And the only thing that worried me a lot was that I had very long hair and looked a little bit like Jane Badler with the long hair, and they made me wear a terrible sort of nylon wig so that they could discern between, Jane and her lovely locks and me with my nylon wig. See the things you remember, it's amazing.
This comes flooding back. You had a question back up there? Go ahead.
My question to you is, when you got cast for V, when you read the script, were you unusual type of role for me to take, or were you?
Well, I had already done, you know, the very first film I ever did. Am I lying about this? No. The very first film was a film called The Final Program, which was a sci-fi Michael Moorcock thing. I had already, and I did the, you know, Space 1999, and I actually went down the path very early on with the sort of films that I was doing and the sort of TV work that I was doing. So I wasn't overly surprised by V. I thought it was very, very cool, you know, and it was certainly, it was more fun to do than wearing the big hair and the earrings, I can tell you. And also, everybody was freaked out by it. you know, the whole lizardy thing. I mean, people were, nowadays nobody seems to flicker about anything, but you know, it was really, back then, it was really quite shocking. And no, it was a good one. I don't know how my character would have developed if I'd stuck with it, but it's, you know, stands up.
That first film you mentioned, The Final Program, is actually a tremendous movie. Unfortunately, that's a UK title. It came out here under the title The Last Days of Man on Earth.
But you're good. You're very good. That was my first death. I had a hypodermic needle, and I remember I had a passionate crush on the leading actor whose name was John Finch, who was at the time going to be a big star, they all thought. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out like that for him.
Yeah.
However, I mean, for me, I played his sister, and not only did I get to lie on a wonderful bed and lie in his arms as a young actress, but it was the first film I ever did. And you know, nowadays everybody's so au fait with what goes on, but I'd done all my years, I'd trained, I'd been in the National Youth Theatre, I'd been at drama school, I'd been on tour, I'd done a lot of work before I got to my first feature film, my first film, and I can remember going on the set and being, nobody prepares you for the enormity of a real movie set.
This is true.
You know, and you walk through these enormous doors, and there's pitch dark, and then over in the corner is that little glow of light where you are going to end up doing your scene, which is what happened to me. And funnily enough, I remember very strongly the sense that this is. Should I take that for you?
Oh, you want me to get that for you?
No, I can take it for you.
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. Should I take it? Yeah, well, we need to have a word with him. But the final program, yeah, so I remember very clearly the first day on the set, absolutely feeling like this is where I belong. Because I've not done a lot of stage work. I've absolutely been brought up in the tradition of the theatre. I was trained, I come from Stratford-on-Avon. I've classically trained and everything, but I've gone very much down the route of screens, TV and movie. And I remember that feeling, and I got it again 2 years ago in Witchville.
Mm-hmm. Produced by a mutual friend, Amy Quell.
Of course, dear Amy. And I was out in China on a vast plain. I mean, a vast plain in China. And this was, you know, we all worked very, very hard. It was one of those great experiences, again, you know, not a lot of money for anybody, working hard, very tight schedule. And I was out on a vast plain, and it was about 6 a.m. and it sounds almost pretentious, so I apologize, but I don't mean to sort of sound grand. But I remember sitting there looking at this extraordinary vista with these incredible mountains. They've got this particular area of China with these very pointy mountains, just like a kid's drawing. And everybody was working on me. But everybody was around me. You know, the sound man was getting me ready, and the hair lady was getting me ready, and then everybody sort of stood back for me to have my moment. And I remember reliving the feeling, which is pretty damn good at 58, whatever I was, from when I was 20. That feeling I had in China once again, which made me think, thank God I still feel like this, of thinking, this is absolutely where I belong.
Where you belong,
you know,
yeah.
This is what I love to do, and this is what it's all about. And for the next few seconds, it's all about me.
You gotta love that.
But you know what
actor doesn't, of course?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, it takes a certain time to know that,
You know.
especially with the hours we work. You know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We have one more question. We're pushing it on time. I'm going to do one more. Sorry, go.
We'll do two more.
He's wearing the Superman shirt, so he wins. Go
Yeah.
for it.
I was Don, too.
Yeah, go for it.
You had the telephone call. Yeah.
Like Patrick Stewart again.
Yes.
You were classically trained. So if you are going back to...
No, I was classically trained. I just didn't go down the classical route as such. So I haven't done a lot of theatre. I absolutely was trained, and I actually took a lot of classes from privately at Stratford Theatre, because my mum is a physiotherapist, way back when at Stratford. But I mean that my training was a really staunch theatre training, years of drama school, elocution, private lessons at Stratford Theatre. I hadn't been on the stage at Stratford. I've only done West End and tours. Patrick is very classically trained. I was one of the, I can remember very, very, very clearly the first time that when I went to Hollywood, being told by a couple of actors, as we had a drink in the Dirty Duck in Stratford-on-Avon, which is the name of the pub, that they told me back in '81 that I was selling out because I was going to England. And one of those actors, I then saw years later doing terribly well in Hollywood, because back then you didn't cross over. If you were a theatre actor, that's why Patrick Stewart, it was such a big deal. It was an enormous deal for him to cross over, you know, for him to leave the theatre, if you like, and go. And of course he's proven that, you know, we can actually do everything, surprisingly enough. Would you mind if I just took that gentleman's question, because I know it's going to be excellent.
Sure, go for it, go for it.
It'll be good.
No pressure.
At the end of Superman 2, all right, there's like, what's, lose their powers, they fall, you know, but it's, did he actually die or not? Because Superman is not supposed to be killed, so...
You're very good. Very good question, sir. We actually reshot that ending, and I don't remember what I heard, but we reshot that ending so that we could come back in Superman 3. But we never did we?
And they brought in Richard Pryor. There was a good idea.
Oh, well, yeah. Let me just say, word has it. Word has it, and of course Chris is no longer here to defend himself, but word has it by the third part that he had script approval and cast approval, and he wasn't altogether sure that he wanted the villains in there yet again, because 2 had proven so popular that they decided to go off in a different direction. So we were just, so we went over the edge, never to return again. But hey, there's still hope. It could come back as a Grammy.
I do have to wrap up, guys. I'm sorry, but guys, pick up Sarah by the way. We'll be signing autographs from the game. Please, pick up the lovely Sarah by the way.